Get more confidence. Get that promotion. Get moving up the corporate ladder. Get a better gig with an MBA from Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, now you can take your career to a whole new level with a full-time MBA in College Station and convenient weekend options at Houston City Center. Texas A&M has a program to suit your schedule. Visit mba.tamu.edu. And Giga Maggie.
Howdy, welcome to Mays MasterCast. I'm Shannon Deere, the Interim Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs, here with your spectacular host, Ben Wiggins.
Hey, Shannon. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not sure when this will run, but as we sit here now, we survived some pretty extreme weather last week, and our hearts are with those who lost power for an extended period, lost water, have burst pipes, Yeah. It was tough sledding for a lot of people.
It was. And on top of an already tough 11 months, I guess. So, really, really tough. And it's amazing how much energy these things take, I think, that we don't necessarily even always realize. So certainly thinking about a lot of people across the country, but certainly across the southern part of the country that had a really challenging week this week.
Yep.
Today on the show, we have Michael Kurt. He was an excellent guest and a Mays undergrad who we are so proud to be able to call one of our own. Michael currently serves as head of finance at Hinge, which is a dating app. He has been tasked with building out the team and function and supporting the company's rapid growth in collaboration with its product, marketing, engineering, and community teams. Prior to working at Hinge, he worked at Disney in their finance department. He was also at Paramount Pictures and their strategic planning and business development departments, as well as at Wasserman and Cycle Media. He's had a lot of interesting experiences, and he talks about how his passion kind of built his path that was a little bit winding, but ultimately has led to some great places. Michael graduated from Mays in 2009 with University Foundation and Business Honors. He received the Buck Wyris Spirit Award, which is such an honor. And he was nominated for both the Brown Rudder and Gates Mueller Outstanding Student Awards. While a student, he served in numerous leadership roles, including as the president of the Business Student Council. He also has his MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, where he graduated with concentrations in finance, strategic management, and entrepreneurship. Michael now has the honor of serving on the Mays Business School Dean's Advisory Board, and where he has engaged in recruiting prospective students for business honors, and he has spoken at the last two business honors signature work retreats. After having lived in Orlando, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York, Michael has currently settled in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with his beautiful wife, Alicia, and their precious daughters, Caitlin Elizabeth, who's 2 years old, and Olivia Grace, who's 3 months old, and their dogs, Ruby and Violet. We welcome Michael to the show.
Let's get into it. We welcome Michael Kurt to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
It is our pleasure to have you here. How was your weekend? It's been interesting times in a lot of the U.S.
It has. This weekend was a lot warmer than the last week, that's for sure. Got to spend a lot of quality time with my two daughters out in the snow all last week and really enjoyed it. We actually were very lucky. We only lost power for 7 hours last week, so we didn't have any leaks. My family in Houston unfortunately dealt with 4, but everybody's safe and healthy, and so we're grateful for that. And my heart definitely goes out to all of those who are much more significantly affected by this crazy cold weather.
Yeah, no question. Many people got it pretty bad, and yeah, our hearts are with them and their families. What is your favorite superpower?
Well, outside of time travel, which is a very common answer, I would say that the power to instantly heal others is very much a favorite of mine. I think it's obviously very relevant right now in the middle of the pandemic. But I just think it's a very beautiful, personal, impactful way to help others. And I actually almost pursued a career in medicine at one point. So I think that's another reason why that particular superpower is near and dear to me.
I want to come back to that for sure. Let's give our listeners a little background on you. Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Katy, Texas, just west of Houston, and actually just the general West Houston area.
How many in your family?
So I grew up with my parents and two younger sisters, Adele and Christina. And in my immediate family now, I have the privilege of having two beautiful daughters and married to my incredible wife, Alicia.
Yes. How did in terms of your young life, how did your parents and grandparents impact you?
So both my parents and grandparents really instilled in me the importance of faith and the importance of values in forming character, and really instilled in me the importance of building and maintaining strong trust-based relationships with family, with friends, just throughout life, which really drives both happiness and success and fulfillment. And my parents in particular really taught me the importance of truly being a leader in my community and giving more than I take. They were very involved in the Katy area through the Greater Katy Area Chamber of Commerce, through the Katy Rotary, through the Economic Development Council. And so that was something that was very important to me growing up as well. And with that, they taught me the value of hard work, of commitment, of being resilient, as both of my parents were self-made entrepreneurs and built businesses. And my paternal grandfather actually started from nothing in this country. And my maternal grandmother actually grew up without her father, who passed away at a very young age. And so they were very much self-made individuals. And they, through their example, showed me the importance of choosing to be positive, of being optimistic and finding the good in everything. And they also coupled that with really teaching me the importance of giving grace and finding peace through forgiveness.
Tell us a little bit about your grandparents' legacy and especially your grandfather's legacy.
So my paternal grandfather is a survivor of the Holocaust. His father, at the age of 13, placed him on a train and said, just know somewhere in this world, you've got a father that loves you. And that was the last time that he ever interacted with his father. And fortunately was able to make his way over to the United States, came in through New York City, vividly recounts seeing the Statue of Liberty for the first time, and actually ended up reconnecting with both his mother and stepfather down in Houston, which is how my paternal side of the family started out in Texas.
Yeah.
But those were the only family members that he had left. He lost everybody else and everything in the Holocaust. And even with all of that struggle, all of that pain, he came to the United States and found a way to start a new life and allowed his faith in God and in finding deeper meaning in life to find hope and to find optimism for what the future would hold. And actually not only came to the United States, but then immediately joined the military to serve this country and to fight against the Nazis and against the Japanese. He actually was stationed in the Philippines for many years.
Yeah.
And his influence on me personally has been so deeply profound because, well, one, we're extremely close. He actually always grew up calling me his boogaboo. And I had the chance to actually go to Vienna with my dad. Unfortunately, my grandfather couldn't join us. This was back in 2014. So right before I joined, right before I started at Booth. And my dad and I actually got to enter the apartment that he grew up in. Years ago, my grandfather still to this day reads he's almost 95 years old, and he reads the Vienna newspaper, even from Houston, on a daily basis, just to keep tabs with what's going on.
Yeah.
In what was his home. And one day somebody reached out to him or not reached out to him, actually put an ad in that newspaper looking for Karl-Heinz Goldschmidt, which was his name before becoming Charles Henry Kurt here in the States.
Yeah.
And like, what are the odds, right? That a guy many, many years later living in Houston, Texas would find this ad in the Viennese newspaper.
Sure.
Reached out to her and this amazing woman, Barbara Kintert, she is a historian who's been very passionate about the history of the Holocaust and specifically the fate of those who lived in her apartment building. And it just so happened the apartment that she lives in is the apartment of that my grandfather and great grandfather were living in at the time. And so my dad and I got to actually walk into that building, into that home, and we were FaceTiming with my grandfather, and he just started crying.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible to be able to share that with him. But he came to the United States and, like I said, built a life out of nothing. He was happily married to my grandmother for over 65 years, with 2 sons, my father and my uncle, and lived the American dream, built the American dream, and chose to find the good, chose to pursue hope, chose to see the optimistic view of life. And he worked incredibly hard and had sacrificed so much to build our family. And it's just had such a lasting influence on how I think about the concept of time, how I think about privilege, how I think about making the most of the opportunity that I have to live life and live life where I have the chance to be a beacon of hope and a source of happiness and positive influence for others.
I love that. What was your greatest challenge as a child?
I was a bit of a heavy kid, or as my mom would say, husky. And so I definitely struggled with self-confidence in my young life. And I dealt with a lot of insecurity, really. And I think that that's fueled much of my drive today. But at the same time, I think that some of those insecurities do creep back in every once in a while.
Sure.
But I do think that self-confidence is really a critical component of success, of happiness. I mean, you really have to believe in yourself. And I also think self-confidence has to be balanced by a certain level of humility too.
Sure. Since confidence and belief are very emotional states, and it's hard to, I mean, there is a degree of, to which you can kind of fake it until you make it, but how does, coming from a place of less confidence in your self-image as a child, how were you able to construct your own self-confidence? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes with time through experience in, first of all, doing a bit of reflection into who you are and where you find your value and how you find your self-worth. But I think too that as you have wins in life, as you have successes, as you work hard and you strive to be resilient throughout your shortcomings, but being self-aware of those shortcomings, I think really help you ultimately become confident in what you are capable of. I know that's definitely been true for me. I think my time at A&M was very instrumental in building my confidence. I think that was the turning point for me in getting to be involved in a variety of organizations across campus and actually getting to step up into leadership positions and realizing, hey, I can do this. Like, hey, I've got a voice and I've got a platform and an opportunity to collaborate with others and to influence others in a positive light. I think that was really the tipping point for me during my time as an Aggie.
And you were elected to a position of leadership pretty early on, I understand. And there was some interesting stuff that came out of that, I believe. Tell us a little bit about that.
One of the first organizations that I joined as a student at Texas A&M was Business Student Council, which I eventually served as president of. I really loved BSC. And in my first few weeks as a student, I think it was the first Business Student Council meeting, I was on my bike riding back from Wayner to the Commons. I lived in Aston at the time. And I called my parents because I was just so excited to share this new exciting organization that I just knew was going to be influential at Mays and just a great opportunity to learn and grow. And so don't ever text or call while driving. another great lesson of that, but
Right.
whether it's a vehicle or a bike. But I'm riding my bike back from Wayner to Aston, and something runs right across the sidewalk right in front of me. And I didn't know what it was. I thought I had possibly run over it, but it scurried away. So it ended up being okay. And it wasn't until I got to my first stop sign that I realized that I had actually been sprayed by a skunk. And, when you smell a skunk in the car, it's a very different smell than when it is concentrated and on your body. And I will tell you that odor remained with me pretty much throughout that entire semester. My first semester as a student at Texas A&M. My cousin, who's the same age, it was also a freshman. He ran over to the grocery store to get, it was a combination of hydrogen peroxide dishwashing soap and baking soda to get the odor out as fast as we could. And it didn't matter. It stuck with me for a while. And my parents thought they were pretty funny because when they were dating, my dad had actually won my mom a couple of Looney Tune characters. Like, I'm talking life-size Looney Tune characters from Astroworld back in the day while they were dating, before they were even married. And they sent me their Pepe Le Pew to display proudly in my dorm. But it was wild. I mean, the RA thought that I was playing a prank on all of Aston and that I had let a skunk into the building. But it just so happens that I was the lucky one who was sprayed.
Well, I'm sorry that happened, but I'm happy you survived. You mentioned earlier that you made a transition during your time at A&M to study medicine. How did that all come to be?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I started my A&M experience, very excited to join the PPA program, to pursue an accounting career. My dad has his own accounting firm. I actually competed in UIL accounting competitions when I was in high school, and thought it was my path. And deep down, once I joined PPA and we started all of our Big Four recruiting, I started to really feel a sense of hesitation around, is a career in tax, is a career in audit something that I'm interested, that I truly am passionate about and interested in, and see myself self-pursuing. And in the summer of 2008, I was actually supposed to spend my entire summer in London. I was supposed to spend the first half interning with a Big Four accounting firm and the second half studying business analysis and valuation at the London School of Economics.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, Greg Quidar, a fellow Mays grad, we were actually best men in each other's weddings. He convinced me to scrap my internship plans and instead journey with him throughout Mexico and Central America into both Belize and Guatemala. And Greg had founded a nonprofit called Full Hearts, and Full Hearts aimed to support Casa Hogar, which was an orphanage for young girls in Nuevo Laredo. And the purpose of our journey in traveling throughout Mexico and Central America was to learn best practices from other nonprofit organizations that we could bring back to both Full Hearts and Casa Hogar. And it was a really and truly introspective trip for Greg and I. It was a life-defining experience in which I decided that I would define my own success to be measured by myself rather than measured by the world around me. I think what made the trip so introspective was through service, through adventure, conversations, and new people that we were meeting with just a completely different lifestyle and orientation around what mattered in life, what was truly important, and just getting that international perspective, just being away from daily routines and pressure. I really found that it was important to me to live my life as a man for others and really serving with love and with intention and faith. And so upon returning back to the States, I actually left the PPA program. I declined my offer to intern with Ernst & Young in New York the following summer in their financial services office. And I ended up taking every prerequisite course required, with the exception of one, to sit for the MCAT to apply to medical school. And I shadowed an ear, nose, and throat specialist in Houston who was an Aggie, very gracious with his time, and two surgeons at St. Joseph's and Bryan to get experience in surgery, in at least observing surgery and medicine in action. And it was through that I realized, you know what? Maybe my desire to pursue medicine was too too based upon my desire to help people in the most direct way possible, and having the chance to heal through medicine. And I just realized that I didn't really have the stomach for surgery, and couldn't convince myself that I truly had the passion for the science behind medicine. And so it was a pretty humbling experience to have taken that risk, taken that jump, but then realize, you know what, this wasn't the right jump. And so I took a step back at that point. I was a fifth-year senior at A&M who had foregone PPA, who had taken all the science coursework, realizing, you know what, this wasn't my actual path.
Sure.
And it turns out, so in the spring semester of my freshman year, I actually interned with the Walt Disney Company as a character performer. And so I was down in Orlando, Florida at Walt Disney World, and I was most commonly friends with Tigger, as we say. And I realized just how much I loved that experience and the importance of storytelling. And through Tigger and other characters, I really firsthand got to experience the magic of storytelling brought to life, and how much Tigger's character really meant to so many children and adults for that matter. And so I had a moment where I decided, you know what, I am very interested in going back to Disney, and in storytelling being an important part of my life story and my career. And I want to be able to bring that unique magic to life for so many people. And so I had the honor and the great opportunity to go back full time working in finance, where I spent the first 4 years of my career after A&M.
All right. And so then connect the dots for us in terms of the rest of your career up to current.
Sure. So in my 4 years working at Disney, I had the opportunity to support strategic business planning at Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, the water parks, the ESPN Wide World of Sports, and that included pro forma development for multiple growth projects at the parks. It was a really exciting time in which Disney was expanding and redesigning and building. And after those 4 years, I left Disney to pursue my MBA at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, which was a really great opportunity that truly rounded out my education and my experience. And in the summer between year 1 and 2 of business school, I interned with Paramount Pictures and their strategic planning and business development group, which was very special. I had always dreamed of working in Hollywood, of pivoting one day from parks and resorts. And so I was very thankful for the chance to work at that storied studio, which obviously has a ton of history.
Yeah, Paramount's a great lot too.
Oh, it's so special. I mean, it's really, really unique. I mean, from the bench that Tom Hanks sat on for the filming of Forrest Gump to Lucille Ball and her offices on the lot, it's pretty special. A lot of history there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so after I graduated from Booth, I actually briefly returned back to the studio to support the motion picture planning process. Yeah. So I supported the motion picture planning team in greenlighting new films as a member of the worldwide TV distribution planning team, which was a lot of fun. And shortly thereafter, I was recruited by Wasserman, which is a global sports and brand agency. And I was recruited there to lead finance and strategy for its recently acquired ad agency laundry service, as well as its acquired influencer management and branded content studio, Cycle, which collectively was known as Cycle Media at the time. Right. And it was a cutting edge branded studio shop that had built very unique expertise in digital and social content and strategy. And so for me, it was an exciting opportunity to diversify my media and entertainment experience and expertise, and to join a company that was creating really stellar content for brands like Nike, Brand Jordan, Beats by Dre, BMW, the NBA, Netflix, and ESPN. So I really loved my time there. And after being with the company for 2.5 years, I was recruited by Hinge to be its first finance hire. And as head of finance, I've been tasked with building out the team, the function, and supporting the company's overall rapid growth in collaboration with our product, and engineering teams, our community teams, and our marketing teams. And funny enough, I actually had to Google what Hinge was when they first reached out to me, because my wife Alicia and I met back in 2010, actually at Disney, and it was well before dating apps were mainstream. So I had no idea what Hinge was all about. But once I understood its mission and had the chance to meet the team, especially my now boss, Sam, who's Hinge's COO, and Justin, our founder and CEO, I was sold. I mean, I was very thrilled to jump aboard the rocket ship that they had launched, and was very eager to, again, diversify my experience beyond media and entertainment into the world of tech, and with a company that's really culture defining and that has mastered modern dating, and I think will very much influence its future.
Tell us a little more about that. What is Hinge doing that absolutely no one else is doing in the dating app world?
Yeah. So Hinge really believes that it is the dating app that's designed to be deleted. It's our goal to help people find love and lasting long-term relationships, and to do so without falling victim to another source of digital addiction. We really pride ourselves in the intentionality of our users and of our app experience. And we believe in the efficacy of our product. When we're evaluating new features or even optimizations of existing features, we really care about how those changes will affect metrics like the rate of conversations initiated, the rate of matches, the rate of phone numbers exchanged, or the rate of good dates. And we believe really that by being the most effective dating app, that we'll win the market in the long term. So how do we achieve that app experience, that level of intentionality? Well, I can tell you that internally, our core values are, we call them our ACE values: authenticity, courage, and empathy. And they not only permeate the employee experience, but also the user experience. Registering for Hinge and completing a profile, it requires a user to really invest time in building out how they present themselves through thoughtful prompts, photos, videos. And this process and building out this profile really encourages users to be vulnerable, to have the courage to share their true selves. And at the end of the day, we require a lot more than just a handful of curated images for swiping. And so to that end, last year, we actually launched Hinge Labs, which is a first of its kind team of professional relationship scientists and researchers whose sole purpose is providing evidence-based dating insights to help our users find love. And so we're digging into how all types of people actually behave while using the app, with a particular focus on studying the behavior of successful daters.
Yeah.
So that we not only teach all of our users how to become successful daters, but then to partner with our product team to improve the app experience and build out capabilities that enable them to do that.
What are their most striking insights? This data-driven team. What have they discovered so far?
Great question. Yeah. So the first key insight that we actually just released not too long ago was in regards to the emergence of video dating, and not only video dating, but video dating during the pandemic.
Okay.
And so at the beginning of quarantine, so about a year ago, we asked Hinge users about video dating, and almost nobody had tried it, but about 70% of our users said that they were open to it. And within about 2 months into quarantine, after we had launched video, over a third of Hinge users had already been on a video date.
Huh.
But the biggest barrier to video dating and the greatest fear that people have is the fear of awkwardness, as would be expected. But 67% of Hinge users actually told us that they found their video dates to be more natural than they actually thought that they would be. And 80% actually rated their video dates as not really all that awkward at all.
Huh.
Meaning that, according to our research, people actually found video dating, or have found video dating, less awkward than first dates in person. That was an interesting insight that gives us reason to believe that video dating is here to stay. We also discovered that people who haven't gone on a date yet only expect them to last a little under 30 minutes because they're unsure what to say, how the conversation would go. But what we found is that over half of all of our users who have tried video dates ended up enjoying it so much that they talked for over an hour. So it actually ends up being a safe, great way to meet people before you actually meet in person. And another insight as it relates to video dating is that over a third of Hinge users say that they're open to being exclusive with somebody that they've only dated virtually. So before they've even met in person.
Wow.
And for men, that number's even higher. It's as high as 43%.
Huh.
So the majority of users who've gone on a virtual date say that they're likely to keep using video dating even when they can meet safely in real life. So we're excited about the role that video dating will continue to play, and in thinking about how even that will evolve in the virtual dating experience in the future.
Interestingly, you talked about how, so you said most people feel like this will last less than half an hour, and then it ends up going over an hour. Independent podcasting is the same way. Not that this is an independent show, but when I first got my shows started, ran 2 shows out in LA. When I was hosting those shows, I would look at the list of questions, and in the first 5 minutes of the conversation, I would think every single time, all right, we've got enough to fill maybe 40 minutes here. And then we would get to an hour and 10, and I would think we have still so much left to discuss. So that process of meeting new people, like there's definitely kind of a tipping point where you just flow into the conversation. And from there, it's I don't know what produces that tipping point, but it's kind of fascinating stuff to think about. As the head of finance at Hinge, what do you think is the future of dating apps 10 years out? How have things changed over the last 10 years? How will they change over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so 10 years is definitely a long way out, but
Yeah.
I do think the future of virtual dating is really only going to be limited by the amount of innovation, development, and widespread adoption of technological advances by that point in time. I think when you look at the history of dating, virtual dating, for many years, breaking the stigma of dating online was a key barrier that the industry had to overcome. But now I think that it's just going to continue to evolve at a very rapid rate. I mean, outside of dating, when you think about how people interact via, through their mobile device, what was once text messaging has evolved into video chatting. Video chatting has been enhanced with augmented reality and virtual gifting and even virtual reality. And so I think at the highest level, these types of innovations over the next 10 years will continue to make their way into dating apps to enhance the user's ability to virtually connect with others in a variety of ways and get to know each other well before meeting in person for the first time. But I also think that the lines of virtual dating are going to continue to blur. Match Group actually just recently announced the acquisition of a company called HyperConnect, which is based out of South Korea, that is focused in the social discovery space. So meeting people virtually through a variety of ways, not even just with the focus of dating, but just making a friend. And,
Sure.
and I think that as social discovery, as that space continues to expand, and people find new ways of meeting and interacting, by whether that's one-on-one, whether that's in group settings, whether that's streaming others' interactions, I think the space is going to become even more of a vehicle for virtual dating itself.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled for all the progress that the company has made. And tell us about the Hinge weddings you've attended.
Yeah, so it actually was pretty cool. So I joined Hinge in March of 2019, and in April, I had the chance to attend my first Hinge wedding, actually with an Aggie. And I'll just say at the highest level, it's just so incredibly special to see that the work that you're doing is impacting people near and dear to your heart in one of the most personal, important areas of life. And so I got to go to that wedding a month after joining Hinge. I've got another wedding that I'm going to at the end of this year, assuming it's safe to get there with COVID and we're vaccinated by then.
Right.
Out in LA with a friend of mine that I interned with at Paramount. And so he met his fiance on Hinge during the pandemic and got engaged, and here we are. They're getting married, and so it's pretty special. And every couple of weeks we have company-wide town halls, or what we call our wrap meetings, where we wrap all of our accomplishments and the things that we were able to achieve since the last meeting. And we always end those meetings with success stories.
Yeah.
And the success stories are user submitted. So it's people reaching out to Hinge, thanking us for helping them find their person, for helping them find love, for helping them find happiness. And it's just a constant reminder as to why we do what we do.
It sounds like you discovered a new passion and followed it, and it didn't necessarily turn out the way that you had hoped. What have you learned about, or what did you learn about the process of following a passion, or following possibly what was your biggest passion at that point?
Absolutely. So I think one of the most critical mistakes people make when they take the advice, follow your passion, is that they don't define what that passion is, or have the clarity to know, is there a market for this? Can I make a career out of this?
Yeah.
Do my talents align with the needs that are out in the world? And I think you can really get trapped in then trying to flounder and search for what that passion is, or forgo great opportunity. I think for me personally, at that point in my life, I failed to see the broader value in getting my CPA. So I think it's just important to not underestimate the value of tangential experience, of stepping stones that will help you be effective in pursuing your ultimate passion and really get to where you want to be. And I think too, just getting as much experience as possible across different things. Like, you can't know you like something until you try it. So that's where I'm really happy with my decision to have pursued medicine, because I couldn't know that it wasn't right for me until I tried it.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a certain level of risk calculation that, in retrospect, I wish I would have taken before fully making the jump. Could I have shadowed doctors before I left PPA and come to that conclusion that medicine wasn't for me at that point in time? Sure. So I think there's always a certain level of calculated risk that you need to take, but being sure that you have that level of clarity and you've really defined what you plan to pursue with great clarity.
Yeah. And then that eventually led you to Disney?
That's right. So, had I not left PPA to pursue medicine, had I not gone on that trip with Greg and really been at a point in my life where I was deeply questioning, what is it that I want to do? I don't know if I would have made my way back to Disney after having interned there as a character performer. And when you look at my career thus far, it's been in media, entertainment, technology, and I think the core thread in the work that I've done, the industries that I've worked in, the companies that I've worked with, has been the impact of storytelling, of connecting the human experience. Whether that's in Disney characters coming to life, Disney experiences coming to life in parks and resorts, whether that's movies being shared, being watched that were produced by Paramount Pictures, whether that's branded content that you may have been seeing with a deep story or a deeper meaning that's helping a brand connect with a customer, whether that's connecting with other humans in real life through Hinge. That's been something that's been very important to me. And I've just been very, very blessed and very fortunate that I've been able to work at incredible companies with wonderful teams that have allowed me to ultimately achieve that work. And it's not easy, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't necessarily happen for everybody. I mean, so much of it has just really been luck in the way that my career has played out. I mean, with Wasserman recruiting me, with Hinge recruiting me, if you would have asked me many years ago that I would end up working for a mobile dating company, I probably would have told you, yeah, right. But here I am, and it's one of the most incredible opportunities and most fulfilling work that I have ever had, or that I could have really imagined.
Fantastic. I love that. Let's move to rapid fire. What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
That I've got it all figured out. And I think I often create that misconception on social media. I'm definitely one of those people that posts the highs. I post what I call my life highlight reel versus sharing the moments of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like I should. I think at the end of the day, we're all works in progress, right? We all fail. on any given day, in any given element of life. And if we're not trying hard enough, and I've certainly had days where I've failed as a husband, as a father, as a son, brother, as a friend, in my job, in my community. But, I think what's important is that we keep trying to grow. We keep trying to learn from our failures and be better than the day before. I definitely don't have life figured out, but I try to make the most with what I have each day.
Excellent. It sounds like you've had some pretty fantastic mentors, but if you could choose anyone, living or dead, as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
I would choose Bob Iger. A very Disney answer, but look, he's a brilliant strategist. I mean, when you look at the Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel, 21st Century Fox acquisitions, when you look at the development of parks in Asia, from Hong Kong Disneyland to Shanghai Disney, when you look at the expansion into streaming with Disney Plus, he's a wizard at creating value for shareholders. He's an extraordinarily respected and admired leader. He's been an incredible steward of Disney heritage, a very generous philanthropist. And I just think he would have so much wisdom to share and stories from which to learn. I'm actually planning to read his book this year and likely watch his MasterClass as well. I just think he is somebody who I very much admire and look up to as a role model.
Bob Iger has an incredible legacy. I have never met him myself, but a couple of my old bosses would meet with him from time to time, and I always heard glowing reviews. Also, easily the handsomest 70-year-old man I've ever seen in my life. That dude, I want to look like that dude right now. But anyone you would like to send good bull?
Yeah, I actually have. I'd like to actually send 2 pieces of good bull, if that's okay.
Sure.
To my 2 best men. So I mentioned Greg earlier.
Yeah.
Greg is a film writer, director, producer.
Yeah.
And with his business partner, Clint Bentley, who's actually married to Rachel Bentley, another Aggie, they actually just got a film in Sundance called Jockey that
Fantastic.
not only was acquired by Sony Pictures Classics, but it also Clifton Collins Jr., their lead actor, won the Best Actor in a Drama Award at Sundance, and I'm just so proud of them and of the work that just the brilliant work that they've done together. Greg and I, we first started talking about his pursuit of film. He found out he actually got into film school while he and I were on that trip in Mexico and Belize and Guatemala. And so it's been pretty special to see that full circle and see the success that both of those guys are seeing. Super proud of them. And also to my brother-in-law, who's my other best man, Parker, who's also an Aggie, who with my sister just gave birth to a beautiful baby girl who's about to be a month old in 2 days. She's actually their rainbow baby. They went through a very difficult miscarriage a couple of years ago. And so it's been special just to see how they chose hope, how they chose optimism, and welcoming this beautiful life into this world. So good bull to all of them.
Phenomenal. Good bull to them and good bull to you, Michael. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Ben. Likewise.
We hope you enjoyed the episode with Michael. So much rich insight in his experiences and him sharing those with us. I wanted to start our top 3 takeaways with Michael's story about following passions. And he talked about his granddad's story and how that really led him to this focus on hope and helping others. And for Michael, certainly a theme throughout the episode was this idea of following his passion to help other people, and how maybe he had some misconceptions about what that needed to look like, that he felt like he needed to go into medicine to do that. But once he really looked back on his life, he was able to see places where through business, he was able to help other people, like working at Disney, which I thought was really beautiful in kind of the discovery process that he went through of finding out, even thinking about back to him working at Disney. That's one of the things when I talk to students about following their passions, I ask them, what was your favorite job? Or what's the thing that you love doing? And it's usually not it's usually something like working at Disney. And then I say, okay, how can we find ways to incorporate those kinds of things or find jobs that will incorporate those kinds of things into your life so that you are able to have those things that give you that spark, but also, like Michael said, will sustain you in a way you want to be sustained financially as well.
Right. I think when people give the advice, chase your passion, follow your bliss, there's this tendency to gravitate to the sound bite. Like I want, and to gravitate toward a very simple one sentence answer that says, this is what captures what I'm really passionate about. And oftentimes what you're really passionate about, it is one, there's frequently a much broader set of things that you could be passionate about than you may think. I think that's especially true for young people. I think when people say follow your passion, young people hear that and think, don't go into business, don't go into finance, don't go into economics, don't go into stuff that traditionally makes a lot of money, don't go into petroleum engineering. And that is the wrong conclusion to draw.
Yeah.
And so I've worked in sports, I've worked in Hollywood, and what I'm most fired up about right now is exactly what I'm doing now. I'm, co-managing our financial fund and doing that really well, doing a really good job with this show.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of other exciting things I'm kicking around right now, but this is a better fit for me than writing for TV and producing independent movies. And there's this sort of assumption, I think, that people make. And there's this kind of, I think that people who work in more right brain professions have a tendency sometimes to look down their noses a little bit at more left brain professions. Mm-hmm. And the opposite is also true, but that advice is frequently coming from right brain people who might have gotten forced into left brain jobs at some point in their life.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. A while back with Chris Field started a class called Business Solutions to Social Problems. And I did a study on that class. And one of the things that I found was that students did not realize that business could be a place to follow your passions, to make a positive social impact. And it truly is a place where much of the positive impact on the world and positive social impact on the world has happened because it's a place where it has been done in economically viable ways. Now, of course, there have been many negative consequences of business as well that we tend, I think, as a society to focus on. But there are many positive impacts of business that we can spend more time thinking about and that students can think about pursuing, and finding companies like Disney that are doing things that align with their passion, that are helping people, that are bringing people happiness and joy. There's ways to find businesses that are doing that and align yourself with those or work for those companies.
I think there's a ton of potential for heart stuff in professions that people think of, especially young people, I think of as the money professions rather than the love what you do professions. And as soon as you can, break out of that way of thinking.
I agree. For our second takeaway, I wanted to talk a little bit about how it sounded like Michael had some regret for his passions leading him on a windier path maybe than some people experience. But I just want to remind people listening that no one really has a straight path. It's when we look back and we say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But at the time it might not. And I think that Michael in some ways really perfectly let himself have a little bit of space in his lane. And especially during college, when you might have a little bit more time and flexibility to pursue some of those different passions. If he had not gone and done the shadowing in the medical field that he did, he would have always wondered if medicine was the place that he should have been. And so, it's a fine balance of not getting too derailed in following your passions, but letting yourself have a wide enough lane that you can move around a little bit and explore what you might really want to do. And I think today, a lot of times students and maybe parents and us as older adults even think we have to stay on this lane or we're going to look fickle or we're going to take a longer time getting to our goal. And that's not always a bad thing. I think Michael did a really good job of that, where it was a little bit off the path, but ultimately that led him to a really good place.
Yeah. As I mentioned to him, there are many parts of my prior careers that I don't really use anymore. but just having to, I think one of the really important skills that you cultivate as a result of doing a lot of different things is in learning how to learn, which is a process that if your education is, if you're getting educated at a place like Mays, a lot of the focus is on learning how to learn and how to think critically and all of that, and learning different processes for learning. Like, for example, there are many little tricks that I use with scheduling and coordinating schedules that I learned from watching the assistants of high-powered executives in the entertainment business go back and forth with each other. And the way they did it was so smooth and seamless. And I was like, this could have turned into a week of just trying to figure out how to get all these people together. You three people did it in 45 minutes. And that's amazing. And I've adopted as many of those tricks that they use as I can.
Yeah.
And, communicating, like the trick I've learned with email is copy everybody on everything. And it is much better to, unless like it's one of the, if it's somebody whose inbox is going to be stuffed all the time, there are exceptions. But otherwise, the more the merrier. I would much rather copy too many people than not enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've had some challenges with that. People copying too many people. I'm like, hold on. We're not ready for them to know about this yet. But yes, so definitely.
Yes, that's a fair point. That's a fair
you have
point.
good judgment with it. Not everyone else does.
Yes.
But no, for sure. And even just the relationships you make along the way that you pick up from those different experiences, right, are really important. Whether it's tips like you are talking about with the scheduling or just relationships and even different cultures and different ways that people do things. I'm sure that Michael picked up a lot of that from a surgery room without even really recognizing that right now in life. And who knows when that may be even more useful for him than it already has been.
Mm-hmm.
For our final takeaway, I wanted to talk about Hinge a little bit. Super cool. Love the idea of the video dating aspect and think that is so helpful, especially as a woman. I feel like, oh man, that would be, if I was going to do online dating, that would be a much more comfortable way to start with a video date than with an in-person date. So can definitely see how there's some benefits to us being a little bit more virtual right now and that impacting, I hadn't thought about, of course, it's impacted our lives in most ways, but I hadn't thought about how it might impact dating, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's lower commitment too. I mean, it's better, I think, in safety terms and just comfort terms.
Yeah.
But also it's really, I mean, if you're having a Zoom date and you've said, okay, at 45 minutes, then you can get off in 45 minutes if you're not feeling it. And if you are feeling it, then great, stick around for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it turns into. But you don't have to you have to get dressed, but you don't have to drive over to the place. You don't have to think about, oh, what food am I going to order? Like there's nothing else that you have to build it around.
And you don't have to wait for the whole process of a meal to unfold, right? You're just, you can cut out of that thing a lot easier. And you don't have that awkward moment of like, when you have to actually look at the menu to figure out what you're going to order and then neither of you are talking and then that's really awkward. You know what I'm talking about. That's an awkward moment.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Prior to meeting my wife, I had been on a few first dates in my time.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool and appreciated that insight from Michael as well. Well, you want to close us with a quote?
I would love to close this with a quote. We're into the Rilke quotes now. So if your daily life seems poor, do not blame it. Tell yourself rather that you are not poet enough to call forth its riches yet. For to the Creator, there is no poverty and no poor indifferent place. Rilke.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
An MBA from Texas A&M University can take your career to a whole new level. With full-time and weekend options, Texas A&M suits your schedule. So get a better gig. Visit mba.tamu.edu.
Looking to start a podcast? Trying to tackle questions like, how do I record? How do I edit? How can I get music for my show? What equipment do I need? How do I distribute it? Good news. The podcast architects are here to help. Whether that's from start to finish, fixing the audio quality, helping you get the episodes posted, go to podconsulting.co. Everyone has something worth sharing with the world.